Hello.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome to Laughbox.
Laughbox, the podcast for the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. And now, here's your host, Chip Lutz.
Well, here we are, ready for Season 3 of Laughbox. New intro, new outro, great lineup of guests coming your way. First, a big shout out to my big brother Pete, who did the intro and outro. Has his own podcast called the Narada Audio Drama Company. That writes plays, performs them with his friends. Check it out on iTunes. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. This season, we're kicking off with somebody that's been on the show before, a good friend of mine, a good friend of the association. We're talking to Steve Wilson. We're talking about his journey from psychologist to joyologist and what Joyology is all about. I know you're going to like it as much as I did. I love talking to Steve, super smart guy, and very few people have done as much for the association as that man right here. So, grab a pen and paper and enjoy. Well, hello, friends, and welcome to Laughbox, the official podcast of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. And today, I'm so excited because I get to talk to a really good friend of mine. Somebody's been a mentor to me. I consider him my laugh daddy. I get to talk to Mr. Steve Wilson, founder of the World Laughter Tour and speaker extraordinaire. So welcome, Steve, to the podcast. Big cheers to you, buddy.
All right, Chip. Great to be here. This is so much fun all the time.
Absolutely.
You bet.
Now, we've spent a lot of time talking, but for listeners who might not know this mysterious man, Steve Wilson, if you could give them the 411 on who you are, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. I generally introduce myself. I'm a psychologist by training and have been an entertainer by inclination, I would say. I had my first tap dance recital when I was 4 years old. I've been an actor, a yo-yo champion, a folk singer, a magician. I like to tell jokes. This has been a thread through my whole life. I have had the good fortune of finding out about the power of humor and laughter years ago. Became seriously interested in it in 1984. I had the good fortune to meet and know many of what I call the early contemporary pioneers. People like Bill Fry and Lee Burke and John Morial and C.W. Metcalf and Art Gliner and just Annette Goodhart and Patty Wooten. And it was my good fortune to know those people personally. And here I am, an evolving human being, believing in the power of humor and laughter and for peace and health and happiness. And I am a very married. We just had our anniversary. Pam and I have been married 13,032 days today. We count every day. That's our way of remembering we want to make every day count. We've got 5 kids, 11 grandchildren, and they're all boys except for 6.
That's awesome. Well, that's a great intro, and I learned something new in that. I did not know that you used to do little folk singing. See, I've learned something new about
the folk song revival in the '60s. I got jumped right in on that. Took guitar lessons and led hootenannies and participated in hootenannies. There's a word you don't hear very often anymore, but. Yeah, the history is written in song.
That's interesting. I did not know that. Well, I'm really excited about our topic today because, for those of you just joining us, I'm talking to Steve Wilson. We'll be talking about Joyology, which I'm pretty excited about because it's something that, Steve's been kind of had in his life for a long time and is bringing it back out to the world, reintroducing people to Joyology. But before we get into that, I'm going to I want to ask you just a random question, just to, get our conversation going. So you're a yo-yo champion. What is the absolute hardest yo-yo trick?
Well, I'm a yo-yo champion of the old school. The kids today are what I call new school, and they have yo-yos that are engineered for more dynamic and long-lasting and complicated tricks. I learned on what I would call a standard traditional yo-yo. Yo-yo has been around for, I think, maybe 400 years. One of the two hardest tricks for me to do, one is called the atom smasher, and the other is called the doggy bite, which is the most dangerous trick in the world for a man to do with a yo-yo. Anyway,
I'll have to Google that.
You swing the yo-yo between your legs, and if you do it right, it grabs onto the seat of your pants. If you don't do it right, I finished the program in soprano.
That's awesome. I've seen that one. I saw you do that one. So yes, I remember that one.
I have a witness.
A witness. Yes. Well, like I said, I'm really excited to talk about our topic today. So we'll jump right in on that. So let's start with some of the backstory on, Joyology and you being a Joyologist. How did all that kind of come about?
When Pam and I, shortly after we were married, 13,032 days ago, we were visiting my family in Philadelphia. We both knew that we came from a tradition that believes, I'm going to try to stop this phone from ringing here. We came from a tradition that believes that no matter what happens in life, even if it's unpleasant, even if it's a difficulty or a setback or adversity, that if you look all around it, you will come to a lesson that's going to be to your advantage. If you can learn that lesson, even from negative things, upsets, setbacks, frustrations. Pam was looking for answers to, as I was, why does this happen? And the why we were looking for answers to had to do with the sudden death and loss of somebody we loved.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, it was my mom, who died when I was 20 years old after a few weeks after being diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Pam's first husband had died suddenly, left her a young widow with 2 kids. And you start, what is that? What's this about? And so while we were in Philadelphia, we went to a toy store, and the name of the toy store was The Last Wound Up. And at the cash register checkout, they were selling bumper stickers. And the bumper sticker they were selling that day said, "Don't postpone joy." And we both felt like that's one of the lessons of sudden loss. That's one of the lessons of losing people that we love. Our days are numbered, and nobody knows what their number is.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to, make the most out of every day. And Mark Twain said, life is uncertain, so eat your dessert first. Oh, okay, that. Don't always save the best for last because you may not get there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we felt that in Don't Postpone Joy. We knew that there was a poet that wrote, "Gather ye rosebuds while ye may," and the Latin saying, "Carpe diem," seize the day. And that made a lot of sense to us. So I was already becoming a professional speaker, and I was talking to people about mental health. and productivity and creativity and stress management, all those kind of things. And I started to work in this philosophy called "Don't Postpone Joy." And after one of my talks, someone came to me and said, you're not just a psychologist, you're a joyologist. And I thought, I'm going to take that. I like that nickname. A joyology, the suffix ology means the study of. Joy is happiness, but more than happiness is something deeper. And I thought joy is study of a deeper kind of happiness. And I got written up in the magazines and newspapers, and as a joyologist, it was novel, it was interesting. Now, hopefully, the philosophy and the psychology of it made sense to people, and so that's how I became the joyologist. And I took that, and I played off of that, off and on for a while, and it made sense to me as I was getting involved with therapeutic humor. That was the beginning. Got involved with AATH. These seem like like-minded people. I can get along with these folks. Mm-hmm. And you tell me what you want to know from there. There's obviously a lot more to it, but are we going in the right direction for this?
Yeah, absolutely. Just having the background on how come about, and that personal story of you both realizing, hey, this is one of the facets of this of the lessons that we're learning of that. Hey, you got to carpe diem, you got to seize that joy. Yeah. And so that's, I think an important thing, which I think can be difficult for people sometimes with, just the overall heaviness of sometimes situations they're going through. I mean, grasping that mindset is, I would think, maybe easier for some than for others. I mean, would you agree with that or disagree?
That's why my work is about teaching and enlightening and trying to get people to see another way of looking at life and what happens in it. When I started to get involved with therapeutic humor, I originally learned about it from Joel Goodman. Joel Goodman was the founder of something called the Humor Project. And in the 80s, 70s, and late 80s, and early 80s, he was running conferences on therapeutic humor, and 800, 1,000 people were going to these conferences. I went to some of these, and then I studied with him in a smaller setting for a week in upstate New York one summer, and it was just remarkable. But I knew that there was something more than humor. Mm-hmm. And a joyful life is not a matter of luck. Having a good life or a happy life is not a miracle. It's not a fluke. It's not an accident. There are things that you can do to possibly ensure that you'll have a life like that, in that direction. Mm-hmm. More happiness. I think life is an opportunity to prepare for difficulty. None of us has had the last difficulty we're ever going to have.
Right.
So maybe there are some things, wouldn't it be good if there were things that we could do so that when the next difficulty comes along, we could manage it better, we could handle it better, it would take less of a toll on us, we could come back from it quicker. And maybe there are things that we could do so that we could just enjoy being alive. Life is incredible. Life is awesome. We can hardly comprehend what it is. So that's all of that got folded into this idea of joyology. There are people who I met early on who were interested in humor, how to have a good sense of humor. Norman Cousins. Let's talk about Norman Cousins. He laughed himself well. Well, now you bring the word laugh in. You told me you were going to talk about humor. Now you're talking about laughing. And the people who were doing trying to do some of the scientific work in this field were making a distinction between humor and laughter. But every time people talked about therapeutic humor, they wanted to talk about laughing. And the research on humor is very difficult to do. What makes something funny? How does humor work? What's the psychology of humor? And the scientists were turning to the physiology of laughter. So I knew that humor was important, but laughter had to be in there too, and it was something different and shouldn't necessarily be confused one with the other, but the two go together. And then there's certain attitudes that I think were important. How do you look at life? How do you look at things that happen? Can you cultivate attitudes that are more positive and contribute to resilience?
Well, I like what you brought up there, a little bit ago on that kind of like focusing on the pre-work that, none of us have had our last life event that's going to happen. And that a lot of times, I maintain that, bouncing back, really it's yes, what we do in that moment, but it's also a lot about the pre-work that we put into, how we're living our lives, how we're feeding our souls, what we're doing in our everyday life. So when that life event happens, we're able to bounce back a little bit faster. So, I mean, I like that you brought that up because I think that that's, a huge component in, living a more joyful life.
Yeah. So I offer, Chip, let me ask you, can we pause this for a moment?
Sure.
I got to take a break. I'm sorry, but I got to take a break.
So in looking at the overall picture, I mean, you said, humor's a part, laughter's a part, attitudes are a part of, the whole, joyful life experience. How do you put that into play as a regular person? I mean, for you and me, obviously, I look at this as like we've drank the Kool-Aid, we know, but there are a lot of people out there that just, I just met a guy yesterday. Just everything came out of his mouth was just so negative. So it was talking like Sad Sack from Beetle Bailey. Everything was, was an issue. This was a problem. That was a problem. How do people put things into play?
I think we try to help people be open to some ideas. We live in a society that for a few hundred years has had what I would call a very negative attitude towards humor and laughter. Humor, comedy, that's trivial, that's juvenile, it's immature. When are you going to grow up? Get back to work. We're not here to have fun. Don't laugh in church. Don't laugh in school. Don't even laugh too loud in the movies. I mean, there's just all these admonishments. It's upside down. It's backwards. What we know is that humor, a sense of humor, the ability to see the lighter side of what's happening, is a saving grace. It's a strength. I came across a wonderful example of that in a book. I think William Perky was the author, and the title is something like "How to Manage Class Clowns and What We Can Learn from Them."
That's fat. Oh, I want to hear more about this. I mean, because out of 600 kids in my high school class, I got voted class clown, which is why my dad said, well, I don't see me paying for your college. You should really join the military. And that's how I ended up in the Navy right there.
And what happened? They got rid of the clown in you? No, you're still a clown.
This is true.
And he thought, oh, we're going to get that out of you. And so that's the attitude. We got to straighten you out and wipe that smile off your face. What's so funny? And that is the attitude that I think a lot of us who are working in the field of therapeutic humor are trying to set straight, trying to get people to straighten out. So I think you do that a couple of ways. One is information. Give people information, and try to give them some facts. Some people will, it will help them to change their attitude towards humor if they see the science, they see some research about humor and laughter. Some people, Confucius offered this advice to teachers. He said, tell me something, I'll probably forget it. Show me something, I might remember it. Involve me in it, and I'll understand it.
Right.
So I think we tell people, here's some information, here's an example, here's another example, here's some science, and then that will help them say, oh, well, maybe I'll take another look at my humor and my laughter. And then we can involve them. We do laughter exercises. We have them watch a funny movie. We have activities that help people identify their senses of humor. And I love saying that in the plural. You don't just have a sense of humor. A joyful life, the Joyology life, is lived by people who've discovered they can have several senses of humor.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that? Different senses of humor?
Well, sometimes some people like to do clowning or see clowns. That's one kind of sense of humor. Some people have a sense of humor. They like political humor. They like observational humor. They like sarcastic humor. They like to make puns.
Right.
They like sexy, bawdy humor, risque. There's hundreds of words in the English language that describe senses of humor. And so one of the things that I do is I ask people, where do you think you got your sense of humor? Where did it come from? And then they start to think about their family. Well, maybe family, maybe it was radio. Maybe I liked Saturday Night Live. Where did I get start to think about yourself and think about your humor in a positive way. How would somebody who knows you well describe you when you're being humorous? Oh, yeah, well, gee, this group of friends bring out this kind of side of my sense of humor. But I got some other friends, with them, another kind of my humor comes in. We start to help people to understand that their ability to be in humor, as a phrase, is a strength, is a character strength. It can be a morality strength. It can be a mental health, certainly a sign of mental health. People whose mental health is impaired or weak or in trouble, they're either not laughing at anything, easy to see when somebody's depressed. You're very depressed, clinically depressed. I mean, nothing's funny. Or they're laughing in a crazy way, in a mania, in a maniacal way. They're laughing at their own hallucination. So we need to show people that a healthy sense of humor and using humor in a healthy way is a kind of a skill, and it's a strength. You're not going to have mental health, and you're not going to get along well with other people. Mm-hmm. You're probably not going to advance in a career or a job unless you cultivate and manifest and show your sense of humor. There was a study that was done a while back with personnel directors and presidents of companies. I think there were two different studies. And one of the things that they discovered was if there's a job opening or a promotional opportunity, and you have two people with equal characteristics and qualifications for that promotion or the job opening, it's going to go to the one who has a better sense of humor. There's a lot of advantages to humor. We can demonstrate that. We can involve people in activities, and they can begin to see that for themselves. And then laughter is a physical act. Humor is psychological. It's a way of being amused by what you are experiencing, what you're observing. It's an amusement. It's fun. But laughing is a physical act that typically you do if you are abused. But we know that infants in the crib and the cradle, before they have language, before they have any verbal skills, they will giggle. They will laugh. They'll lay in the crib and they'll laugh if they're healthy, if they're well fed, if they're loved. There's certain conditions that human beings will groove to. If they exist in your life, you're going to laugh more as a baby and as an adult. But when the infant laughs in the crib, people don't run over and say, gee, she has a great sense of humor. It has nothing to do with that. Something else is going on, and that leads us into the whole thing that we're now is becoming more to the front. The foreground is the brain and how the brain works, the neuroscience, the neurochemistry of humor and laughter. So humor is vital to a good life, to a joyful life, to resilience, to all the things that are good in life. But it's not enough. Laughter is vital. If somebody isn't laughing, there's going to be a problem. What's blocking them from laughing? When they're laughing, and Dr. Fry, Bill Fry, Jr., psychiatrist, said, let's use the term true mirthful laughter.
And we'll be right back with Steve, but now it's time for Fun Facts! Fun Facts where I share facts about humor, laughter, sometimes whatever I feel like. And this is one of those times. Here's today's fun fact. 4 times more people speak English as a foreign language than as a native one. Yes, it's true. It's the most widely spoken tongue in the world, with nearly 2 billion people learning it as a second language and only 350 million people speaking it natively. Yes, that's your fun fact. You know what else is a fact and not a foreign language? Laughter. Share it. If you can't share your laugh, share your smile.
True mirthful laughter. Now we have the psychologist Rod Barton up in Canada has written a tremendously important book called The Psychology of Humor. And he and other contemporary people in this field are now saying the greatest benefits come to a human being at the intersection of humor, laughter, certain values. And so those 3 things are the core of Joyology. Mm-hmm. What you know about humor, the right way to use it so it's helpful, not hurtful, those kinds of things. Or when to laugh, how to laugh with and not laugh at people. Very important. And I created this 6-step program called Good-Hearted Living. 6 attitudes that are very important. If you can develop and cultivate these as part of a life, Joyology is a lifestyle. It's not a gimmick. It's not a technique. It's not a method. It's how you decide to live your life. So you're going to study and incorporate good, healthy humor, study and incorporate healthy laughter, study and incorporate certain values, and then select personal items that appeal to you from what I'm now calling the buffet of joy.
Oh, I like that.
There are so many things available in life that could help you feel happy and engaged and satisfied. And for some people, it's going to be spinning on a bicycle. Some people, it's going to be playing music or dancing. For some people, it's going to be meditation and prayer. And so the buffet of joy is very important. So Joyology says cultivate your senses of humor and enjoy them and appreciate them. Cultivate your laughter and enjoy and appreciate that and share that with other people. Cultivate values like gratitude and forgiveness and kindness and things like that. and then add items that you pick from the buffet of joy because they appeal to you personally. For me, it was tap dancing, yo-yos, acting, folk singing, magic. Those are things from on my buffet. And then you put that together and say, that's how I want to live my life to the extent that I can. And then you can say, I'm a joyologist. I follow the Joyology formula for a lifestyle that's fulfilling and happy. And yeah.
On some of the things you're saying, like going back to what you said about, I'm coupling a few things together here. One, that babies will, laugh, like, so when you said it to me, I hear that, we almost inherently, like, we're born to be joyful. And then coupling that with what you're saying, that within, our society here, at least within the United States, we look at laughter and humor as frivolity. And that, even though we're born to be joyful, some of that is kind of like taken away from us because of the way that we're socialized. No, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to work, you got to succeed, all these different things. And that's, really, to be successful, we need to get back in touch with that inherent, will to be joyful that we're born with, is what I heard you saying from all that. That it's really not about the boardroom and stuff. It's really about, having that balance where we're taking things from our joy buffet and putting them into play in our life, and that will help us really lead a more successful life.
I want to share a couple of ideas with you to piggyback on that. As you were talking, I was thinking of Sean Acker. I think it's Achor, Sean Acker, a business consultant, management consultant who has worked in, I think, last I heard, is about 40 different countries to help improve workplace creativity, productivity, teamwork, attitudes. You find he's got some good stuff on YouTube and books and articles, Sean. But he says, he maintains, and I like the way he presents this, people think if they're successful, they'll be happy. And he says that's upside down. It's your happiness that will help you be successful. And you have to study Sean. Listen to him. Take a few minutes, find him on whatever, YouTube. Very interesting. It's not that success leads to happiness. It's that being happy helps you be successful. Fascinating. And I like that's turning this whole thing on its ear, turning it, upside down. People, why do we say you're born for joy? Well, a couple things. First of all, we know that people who are born blind and deaf laugh. How do they laugh? Where does it come from? They've never seen it. They've never heard it. They're not learning it from another person, but laughter bubbles up inside of people for some reason. Now, when we look at that, one of the things the neuroscientists are telling us is we're kind of hardwired for joy. Our central nervous system, our neurons, our chemicals, there's certain connections in there that say under certain conditions, you're going to be giggling. You're going to be content. You're going to be joyful, so to speak, or happy. So I think we are, in a sense, we're, and then the infant laugh in the crib, laughing, not because they get a joke. And then adults, you see, I think that most grown-ups, even if they haven't studied this, even if they don't know the science of all this, they sort of know that this is a good thing, because an adult gets around an infant and the infant giggles. The infant goes, and an adult sees that. The adult starts laughing, and the adult starts making faces and funny noise, peekaboo, and we want to get the baby to do it more. We have a sense that this is a good thing. Let's do this. Let's interact with this infant.
Right.
And all of this, to me, is some of the evidence. We're born for joy. And then life gets in the way. The world happens and doesn't cooperate with us being continuously high and happy and all that. You go from highs to lows. But when the lows happen, there are things we can do to get out of it. And some of the people who recognized this early on in what I would call the contemporary world, were nurses. Nurses in hospitals treating patients and then observing how the patient's mood, attitude, humor, and laughter changed as they were healing and feeling better. And then they thought maybe even if they could have some of this cheerfulness, so to speak, maybe that would contribute to heal. And then the nurses said, we're going to sort of organize around this. They formed a little group called the NFL that stood for Nurses for Laughter. And the medical profession did, and of course that evolved into the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor over time. We became more interested in the science of it. But, we know this is it. I think I'm an optimist. I think life is meant to be good, and but not always. It can't always be. But when it isn't, maybe we can come back to the better part of it, to the more joyful part of it,
right,
more quickly.
Well, and I agree with, in essence, being responsible for your own self-care, your own joy. I remember like 2013 was a horrible year for me. And so I decided, and I was in a funk, and so I decided that each day I was just going to find a joke that resonated with me, get in touch with my own sense of humor, because it had to meet, the joke had to meet certain parameters. And then I posted a joke a day on Facebook for a year. And, and what was funny is that people would, like it and say, oh, I love your joke of the day. And they share it with other people, and they would get so much joy, which brought me joy. But they didn't realize that I was really just doing it for me. It was completely self-serving.
It's a very important point, and it's part of what Patch Adams is doing very recently in attempting to make a contribution to the healing of PTSD among service members. And he talks about if we can help people find their own sense of compassion and share it with other people. You shared humor with other people, and that would probably, lighten their load for a couple minutes or whatever. But you said you did it for yourself, and we're beginning to see that if we can help the service members who have PTSD symptoms to exercise their own compassion on behalf of other people, they get better. Everybody feels better. It may be a healing process. So compassion runs through Joyology. Everything about good-hearted living, everything about healthy humor, healthy laughter, there is a thread of compassion. And what you did was, you're instinctive. This is what happens to a class clown when they grow up. You grew up, and then you said, and you had a sense, you had an instinct to find jokes that maybe tickled you and share them with other people. And that was a very compassionate thing for you to do. Maybe you didn't dress it up with that in a fancy bow called compassion, but that's what you were doing, and you felt better. You felt better giving it away to other people. That's why you're a joyologist.
Well, how about that? I didn't even know it.
That's right. And I'm trying to figure out now, for 35 years or so, I've been the joyologist. And now I'm working on a way that anybody can decide they want to be a joyologist. You want to follow a lifestyle that uses the tools to recover from difficulty and awaken the joy of being alive. Those are the two promises of Joyology. Recover from difficulty, and synonyms for difficulty are stress, pressure, adversity, depression, unhappiness. How do we recover from those things?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm using the phrase, and I picked this up from C.W. Metcalf, a very, very important person in all of this, reawaken the joy of being alive. And I like the phrase reawaken because it means it was there once. It was awake once.
Right.
And then it happened, stuff happens, and the joy of being alive was elusive, sort of went away.
Right.
We can bring that back.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I like that you're working on how other people can, be joyologists as well. Well, I have really, as always, enjoyed talking to you, my friends. Where do you want people to go so they can get a little more information on Steve Wilson and Joyology?
Well, go to the website worldlaughtertour.com. Friend me on my Facebook page, Steve Wilson. I put a lot of information out on Facebook, LinkedIn. As you know, several years ago, I became the director of National Humor Month, started about almost 40 years ago by Larry Wilde. And then he turned it over to me. So there's humormonth.com. There's almost everything there that will help people to promote humor is there for free to the world, especially something we developed called Funny Literacy, how to use humor to help kids enjoy reading. And anybody, parent, teacher, librarian, anybody's interested in that can find it at humormonth.com. There's so many people who are working to make the world better through these ideas, and we've identified them in our foundation, the Laughter Arts and Sciences Foundation. We call them Starfish Projects. I think you'd be fascinated. You want to know who's working on these things and what you can do to support people. Go to laughterfoundation.org, nonprofit, 501c3, and you'll find dozens of people and their projects that we've identified we think are terrific. They deserve a spotlight, and we set up a way you can give them a few bucks, you can help them out, give them some support for their project. It's going to take a village to get this job done, to get people to appreciate humor and laughter. And it's going to take a rather large village. It's going to take a lot of villagers, and they're not all going to think the same way. It's wonderful, the variety of personalities and ideas and how this can be done. And go and you'll meet the people who are doing it together, and then come and become a certified laughter leader. Take the course, 2 days, how to create therapeutic laughter, and it's available for home study. You can do it at home. Come to a live workshop. Join the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. Join the International Society for Humor Studies. Lighten up, don't tighten up.
Nice, very nice. Now, before we close, I know that you've got to have a joke for the day, so I just want to end with a little bit of humor. So, what do you have for a joke today?
Knock knock.
Who's there?
HIPAA.
HIPAA who?
I can't tell you. Now that's an inside joke, but tell your doctor, tell the nurse, knock knock, who's there? HIPAA, HIPAA who? I can't tell you. They love it. They will. It's very funny to some people.
It is funny. It is funny. It is funny. All right, my friend. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I got a lot from our conversation, and I know that the listeners will as well.
You're incredible. Thanks for the opportunity. Keep doing it. Keep having. Wish you the energy and the health and every opportunity to succeed in all the things you aspire to, because they're all good. And thank you for your service, and thank you for the good work that you will continue to do. So happy to be your friend.
Well, there you go. The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Steve Wilson, psychologist, joyologist. I'm going to encourage you to check Steve out. Go to worldlaughtertour.com. Connect with him. He has got archives. I say archives of great information that he loves to share with people. So reach out. I'm also going to tell you, you're going to want to go to our website, aath.org, and check us out. We are a pretty awesome association, and I'm going to tell you to mark your calendars now. Yeah, now. The conference next year, the 14th through the 17th of May, is in the Big Easy, the Crescent City, the city on the river. It is in New Orleans. So come on by, have a hurricane and a laugh. Well, until next time, this is Chip Lutz saying we'll keep the laugh on for you.
Thanks for listening to Laughbox. If you'd like to learn more about AATH, visit our website at www.aath.org or email the host at chip@unconventionalleader.com. And if you'd like to be particularly awesome, leave us a review on iTunes. Or tell your friends about how awesome the podcast is, unless you didn't think it was awesome. And then just keep it your little secret. Or tell them it was awesome and then laugh to yourself about how you're going to be wasting an hour of their time while you're out doing something productive, like handing out heads of cabbage at a Miley Cyrus concert. Thanks again for listening, and may the farce be with you.